Do it.
You're listening to Final Frontier News.
All right, good evening, guys. A little late start. As always. It's fucking. I guess every week will be a late start. What's up, guys? I'm here with Jesse and Dave, Rose, and of course I'm here because I'm talking, so that means I'm here. We're gonna lead this thing off with Dave. We want to speak a little bit about Retrograde and what's going on here. I have felt the intensity over the last 3 weeks. I want to say almost maybe 2 weeks of the off kilterness of the universe and the imbalance that is, it at least is what it feels like in my life. I've noticed it in other people's lives. I've noticed it in my own life. And honestly, I kept saying out loud, like, how is this possible? How could things get any worse? I got a copyright strike on another channel that I did fix. But it seems like what this retrograde is doing right now is it's like discombobulating everything. I have had several times where I have felt hopeless for a second. And then, honestly, and then I basically felt like, oh, everything's okay again. A little bit. And then I go back to, oh my God, something catastrophe has happened again. And it just keeps like repeating like that. I don't know why it is, but I've noticed it, and so hasn't many other people that I've been around, or certain other people. I don't know what it means, but Jesse's going to get into some of that later, perhaps. I think he's feeling it too. And we'll see where that goes.
I usually get it early.
Oh, okay. I got you. So it goes away. Does it go away or faster for you then?
No. It means I get it more intensely, so I'll get it before. It's like when the vibrations start, I'll get it a couple days early. So
Okay.
I'll get into that in a little bit.
Well, one way to view it is essentially a rebalancing. But yeah, like Jesse said, we'll get into that.
Exactly.
We'll get into that a little bit later on in the show.
That being said, Dave, feel free to speak on this. The psychic abilities is really, it's an open-ended thing. You can go so many different places.
It definitely is. Now, this is a topic that people voted for on Twitter, and we asked everyone a bunch of different topics to be covered on the show, and this is the one that won out. So we're going to be covering specifically psychic abilities of the human being. Now, you may have heard or know about a bunch of these, but there's quite a few, because essentially a lot of them sort of merge into other aspects of these particular sort of definitions, because they all have names and words, but some of them sort of, you could call them the same, or some of them are slightly different. So I'll let you guys be the judge of that. But for example, reading auras, the ability to be able to look at somebody and see the energy flow that emits from their body, and being able to actually see this. So this is considered a psychic ability. Astral projection, like we talked about in the previous episode, is the ability to send your sort of mental projection outwards into the world or into the astral plane. And this is, again, considered a psychic ability. Clairvoyance, or second sight. Dowsing, which is something that really isn't talked about these days, but back, say, in prospector times or the pioneer times, a lot of people were able to get a forked stick, and it allowed them to lead themselves to water. There's empathy, where somebody is essentially a receiver for emotional output. So it could be positive or negative, and that empath essentially feels those feelings a lot more intensely, and it can actually be manifested physically, whether if it's
Yep.
in their being or in their psyche. So, were you gonna add something?
No, I'm just agreeing.
Yeah, man,
Levit.
that's
Okay, so
crazy shit.
I'm going to wrap this up, but just a few here. Levitation, for example,
Yeah.
precognition or precognition, something I know a bit about. Psychokinesis or telekinesis, depending on your definition, but essentially the ability to move objects. Psychometry, um, which is essentially being able to pick up information from an object, usually by touching. Pyrokinesis, which is the ability to manipulate fire.
That's
Remote
interesting.
viewing, which we talked about at the last episode. Retrocognition or postcognition, being able to pick up information after an event. Telepathy, and again, even things like ESP, extrasensory
Yes,
perception.
I was gonna say like it doesn't have to be all these crazy things. Like
Well,
anyone, it can be a
but that's the
very
problem.
small.
That was exactly the point that I was making at the beginning, because you can't just define it as one particular ability, because it just merges.
Mm.
So again, ESP,
Yeah.
or also it's also known as sixth sense,
Hmm.
allows an individual, for example, to demonstrate and utilize these different abilities, which basically aren't separate from each other. They're sort of just another piece of the total puzzle of the psychic ability of the human being.
That's a
Absolutely.
dude.
Yeah, like in the chat, someone asked, can telepathy be learned? And I said yes. I think it's something everyone has. Everyone has. It's just I think it was probably the
Well,
norm at one point. Who knows when?
think
But
about training your brain to walk, right? Like you train yourself to
yeah,
walk,
exactly.
but that's more obvious. That's easy because it's so
Right.
physical. So you're like, okay, well, it took some learning to walk, and then your brain remembers to walk, and then you remember how to use your extremities.
That's a great example, Joe. Like of how to not just with what we're talking about, but just anything in life. Like you really equate it to something that you've done, and you can kind of learn anything really. It's
Right.
interesting. The mind is crazy. I mean,
And the
it's
more intense it is, the more harder it is to usually to learn. But then you can learn it. But you have to you have to unlock certain things. There's so many things that you learn that you wouldn't have learned if you didn't know about them, and if you didn't know how to learn them or someone to teach you, and all these other things. So is it really that far fetched that there's this intuition or psychic ability that could be unlocked, and all the things in between psychic abilities to
mhm.
regular mechanical abilities that we have.
Well, it's funny. Like I think a lot of people see it as like, oh, you have to be able to talk to the dead. You have to be able to do this, do that. Otherwise, it's not real. And it's like, no, that's not the case at all. It's whatever you believe it to be. First of all, it's like you can, if I like, if two people believe something, that's all it takes. One person believes it. That's all it takes. A group of people believe it. It becomes real. For the world believes it. It becomes the fucking norm.
Now, a lot
So,
of people
you know,
discount.
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's pretty much my point right there. So go
A
ahead.
lot of people discount the ability of the human mind, but the human mind can do so many different things that we don't even consider.
Yep.
Not only the ability to rationalize and create out of nothing, out of just non existence, it comes up with ideas, but it also has the ability to open up even more so and allow for these abilities to manifest themselves, where you can, in fact, practice telepathy, for example, or empathy, or a lot of these other powers that are. They're difficult to define because again they sort of meld into each other, but it's again ESP if you want to just summarize it. But the human mind again is just something that we haven't really tapped into, and a lot of people scoff at the ability that we have, but it's there. We just have to choose to open
Yeah,
that up.
and I mean, some people there you will see some people like myself. I'm very empathetic and can I feel shit from other people I don't want to feel. I don't. It's not my choice. That's my job in this world, is to do that. And some people like may want to do that, and they don't, and maybe they weren't really wired that way from as a as a default way. And they have to really work hard at it, just like I would have to work hard at just kind of living my life and not feeling people. It's like you work with your strengths, but you can always learn new stuff. But figure out what you came into this world with. Everyone has something. It's magic. If you're really good at cooking, if you're a great mechanic, if you're good at taking care of your family, good at whatever, good at taking care of kids in general, good at doing anything in the world, teacher, lawyer, I don't care what it is. Anything in the world, like that is your magic. That is your ability. Even people don't think of it, but you can have a psychic sense about anything, about your job, cooking, doing this show, anything that you're good at, really good at. That like that's the kind of it's kind of the same thing to me. It's your abilities. People just don't think of it as the same thing as like psychic stuff, but it really kind of is. Like Joe said, you taught yourself how to walk. You can learn a lot of stuff.
Well, I noticed these abilities in a, like I said, like in a smaller way. Like you talk about the higher abilities that people have, and that could be like a whole topic, like higher abilities or mutated ability. It's not even mutant; it's just higher abilities that not everyone reaches. And you see this, with a lot of people who are autistic because of, they're sort of accessing other parts of their brain. It's like instead of their brain being like, hey, communication and speech and direct cognitive responses, like no, their brain is doing other things. It's working like on the back end of the brain sometimes. Not everyone. It depends what side of the spectrum you're on, but you know what I mean? You could be using those back ends, and that's why we see some kids.
That's great.
They can remember everything they saw in a room by a number, like in a second. Like I mean, these some of these people, their abilities are amazing, and yet some of those same kids, you could say, Ben, do you want to come over and have some juice with me? And Ben might be like, and he doesn't care, and he just looks away. But then,
although that part of their brain doesn't fire, like like ours, it's the opposite for a lot of people.
But their situation is rare. But they're tapping into that part of the brain, and none of us will ever even come close to what they've been able to tap into with their brain. Yet they're treated like they have a disability, but it's just that they're not. Their function of their brain is different. It's functioning differently. And my point in all this is the mechanical side of things. I noticed it at work when you talk about traits and different people's abilities. It's amazing. Everybody in my office where we work, you don't know really what the person has going in. You interview them, and I was interviewed, and everyone's interviewed, and eventually after a few weeks and a month or months, you realize what people's abilities are. And you say, somebody has to be in charge of the analytics of all of these items and do the stock for them in the computer program to send out. Well, you don't want me, myself, I'll tell you right now, you don't want me really doing that. That's not my deal. They know what I'm capable of there, so they don't give me that job, but they do give it to maybe this other girl who's really good at it. And they start giving us all jobs that tailored to our abilities. That's why my abilities, if there's an issue with a customer on the phone and they want to talk to a manager, I do that. And the reason why is because they've said, Dan, you may not be good at, doing all this data entry stuff, but what you are good at is handling an escalated call because of your communication skills. So we've identified me as a good communicator over the phone, able to turn someone's whole mood around just by speaking with them, and all these other things where other people might set them off. But we've also identified that some people can go through all this graphical data while taking calls, and they do well. Other people are better at answering emails because they're particular. They're good at their English skills are good, their typing skills are good, but they may not be as good on the phones. So if there's not enough phone calls, they'll be the first ones moved to emails because that's their strength. So everyone has different strength, whether it's communicating through words, by typing, communicating vocally, over the phone, handling different people's temperaments, computer skills, management skills, team building
Yeah.
workshops. Yeah, it's just all that stuff is what we're talking about on the front end. I call this the front end of the brain in a way.
Well, we're talking about the abilities of the human mind that are considered metaphysical, something that aren't normally considered valid by mainstream science, but the evidence is there that there's an anomaly that exists
Hmm.
that is clearly connected
Well,
to some sort of
I,
force.
yeah. Well, I think Joe's just equating it to like if you do all these things and you can learn all these other things, and some people come into the fold with their own gifts already in play, but you can learn new things. Same thing goes for like all this other stuff. Like Dave said, the metaphysical, like meditation, like you have to practice stuff. You if you want to communicate telepathically with someone or like ESP or whatever, you really just need to work at it. Put it in your intentions first thing. Think about it a lot. You know, research it. Put your energy into it. When you put energy into something, that's where the momentum goes. So you can't. You just have to start by doing that. You know, don't put a time limit on it. Don't think I have to get to this point at whatever. No, just start. Just go for it. Like go with meditation. I'd start with that. That'll get you anywhere you want to go. I
Hey,
mean,
everybody's good at something, you know. Charles Manson
all
was
right.
good at getting people to kill people.
Well, no, all right. That's honestly that he's a smart dude. The guy actually knows a lot about this stuff. That's why he was able to do what he did. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the universe doesn't really. I think it wants the overall good, but it's kind of unbiased. So if you use the energy the right way and you're not using it for good, it doesn't. It's not its job to worry about that. That's why we have free will and choices. He knew how to use the energy to use people's minds. He knew all of it, and he just used it for a bad reason. But yeah,
That's
it's
funny.
kind of the same principle. Good example actually with that guy.
I wanted to get that joke in so much.
Oh no, dude,
So
it's not even a
bad.
joke. That's the scary part.
I know, it's real.
Yeah,
He really did it.
for real. I don't know, like, what have you guys experienced personally? Like, as far as all these different types of what do you call it, Dave? You know, you brought up like a bunch of different ways that psychic abilities or sixth sense abilities. I guess Joe, we already talked about it. You and I, like the other week when we started this show, we kind of had a day that was full of it. Um, what about you, Dave? What have been some experiences with you that you've had?
Well, I
An
alluded to
experience.
this on a previous episode of Final Frontier News, but precognition essentially is something that I've experienced, and essentially events going down and right down to the detail as to how it went down. Um, I've sort of picked up and realized, and it's kind of hard to prove it, because after a while people sort of dismiss you as like, oh well, you don't know what you're talking about, and
Not well if
then
they're
when it
watching this.
happens, people are like dismissive. Oh well, that could have been just luck, or you're crazy or something. But that's honestly one aspect that's happened. Telepathy, for example, being able to transfer a message from one person to another, basically without any words, like exact phrases.
That's that's really
And
cool.
um, if again, like you did say, practice. You've got to open your. The thing is, there's different ways of doing this. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but there are ways to open up your mind. Essentially, your mind is a muscle. So if it hasn't been used very well, or certain parts haven't been used, you've got the atrophy. So certain parts need to be massaged, need to be sort of physiotherapied back into action. Once you're able to do that, and it can include the meditation, it can include all different sorts of activities. But once you're getting your brain sort of like stimulated, you have the ability to then start to concentrate on trying to uh, hone on one of these skills, or whichever psychic ability you wish to sort of pursue. And if you can work with someone that, that works as well, because it will help you, prove things, or, just check your status. But um, it seems to work for quite a lot of people, and that's just one way of going about that. And you can, anybody can really look this up on Google or any other search engine, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of information out there on essentially sort of getting into that habit of exercising your mind so that you're able to utilize these abilities that are essentially built
It's
into
funny.
everyone.
Oh, it's funny, because yeah, I'm usually not practical. I'm not thinking in a real world way. I'm very much like I care about the mystical side of it more than anything. But like when I've been trying to fix the last couple of years, I've really been trying to fix habits and stuff. And I started with very practical means, basically reading a book about rewiring your brain. And I just started doing stuff. I didn't even read the whole book. I didn't need to. Read about half of it, got the gist, and just okay, let's do this. And I just started changing every single habit that I caught myself doing that got me where I didn't want to be in the first place. I would nip them in the bud and just start changing them, changing them, changing them. And now they're all autopilot. Now I don't have to think about them. It's taken me over a year of getting it going, but it's just like I started with a practical way of looking at it, and I've realized that that was the beginning of me really figuring things out spiritually. Um, they're very interchangeable. The practical side of things and the spiritual, mystical side of it. Um, yeah. So I mean, my best advice to anyone wanting to check out any of this kind of stuff is to not question it. Like, not don't think for a second that it doesn't exist. That's all. Because like if you start, that just stops you. It hinders you from learning. Just start.
No,
You know.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you because
No, no.
it
I'm talking
depends
about
on
like when you.
people's it depends on
Well, okay,
people's
go.
minds. Because if you take it the opposite way, if somebody's a skeptic and say,
Yeah.
you say, okay, well, you can be a skeptic but keep your mind open.
That's really
In
all
a
I'm
lot
saying.
of cases, and this is true, in a lot of cases, when they're a skeptic but they keep their mind open,
Yeah.
they end up going down the rabbit hole, so to say. It's like more and more proof keeps amounting, which is total opposite to their view. And at the end of the whole process, they realize, shit, I was wrong. But at least now I've seen all the evidence. I can figure this out for myself, and I've done research. So that does happen in a lot of cases. So it depends,
Yeah. I'm
I
just
think,
saying,
more
like,
so on the
don't put
personality of the
limitations.
person.
Well, I mean, just saying, don't put limitations on stuff. Just kind of go for it. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are
Keep an
like,
open mind is the most important
yeah,
thing. Keep an open mind,
that's
but
it.
it's not,
Right.
there's nothing wrong with being a skeptic, but that's the thing. Being a skeptic
Hmm.
intrinsically means being open minded. That's the thing. People might say, well,
Because they're questioning stuff right off the bat. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
with true logic, that's what it indicates. But some people
Yeah.
might say, well, that's an oxymoron. No, those things don't conflict at all. To be a
Mhm.
skeptic is to have an open mind and say, there's clearly something more to this. So I'm going to consider all different options and then make up my own mind based on, rational thought and rules and so forth. So again, I would say that
Great
that
point.
is very important if you call yourself a skeptic.
Right.
That's a great few points there, man. That was awesome. That's great.
You drew gold
Broke,
out of Dave on that one.
broke it down.
Break it down.
Oh, they're about to go into
It's
the other, huh?
the wrong show.
Okay, so Joe, have you
Two
experienced
words.
anything in regards to psychic abilities, whether it be maybe picking up a telepathic message from somebody, maybe knowing exactly what was going to happen prior to it happening,
Yeah.
or maybe you were thinking about, because this is also a lesser thing. You were thinking about somebody at the exact time that they were thinking about you.
Yeah.
Have
That
you, and again, that happens with a lot of different people, but they dismiss
Yeah,
it.
that
They just,
happens a
oh, well,
lot.
whatever, it happened. No, that is an
big
actual
deal.
same wavelength connection that you're having vibrationally,
Yep.
physically, emotionally, spiritually, all this other, like, 'cause it's, again, we're multidimensional, and we're going to go into that at some point in the future. But again, when somebody says you're on the same wavelength, you've got that connection where you can communicate, if you're honed in on these abilities, at vast distances, and you don't have to be looking at each other.
When you said, you started the question, said psychic ability or psychic episodes and stuff, I immediately thought, no, I really don't have this. And then as you continued, I went, you know what? I do have this a lot. But I have a very faint sort of version. I forget it real quick. Like I go, oh, that was unbelievable. And then you tell somebody and they look like you're crazy. And then you just go, oh, and you just move on. Like that happens to me all the time. Like I'm thinking of something obscure, and then that obscurity appears, and it's like, what the hell? I haven't seen or heard of this in months or years, and all of a sudden, it just happened to me now. Earlier, and I don't know, but here's the thing: I don't know if this was because, was it somebody heard me? I know what it was. I said something about like the drink Mississippi Mud, and then all of a sudden it appeared on my Twitter feed. But I think that's because the guy might have. He was just saying sitting down to have dinner, and then showed the picture. But I mean, things like that happen a lot, or like just randomly done.
Facebook's watching you.
Now this builds towards what is called synchronicity. Now, synchronicity is a very important thing if you pay attention to it, because it exists.
Yeah.
And once you have your mind open to it and you start to just be aware of it, you'll start to see it everywhere. Okay, and you're not going to stop seeing it. But for example,
it can actually be a big overload at times.
If you look for it, you're probably going to start to see the numbers 1111, especially when it comes to the time. You're going to look at the clock, and you're going to see 1111. You may see other combinations and such, but the 1111 combination seems to come up specifically, and you'll notice different things about that particular time. You're going to be thinking about something which is probably quite deep. You might be in deep thought, but it's going to be a topic that is quite pertinent and important. And the whole importance of synchronicity is essentially to utilize it to better yourself, to improve yourself, because again, your subconscious tries to work against you. It actually tries to fuck you up for the purpose of, it tries to mess you up specifically to actually better you, in the sense that you can only learn from your mistakes as long as you're aware as to the mistake that you made. So again, the subconscious works very interestingly, but it does so essentially to make you better. So we're going a little heavy here in regards to this. I think
good. This is good.
I don't mean to overload everyone with all these.
No, I think I talked about this on the first show too, so this is good.
But okay. Now, I was just going to say that the mind again has these strange abilities, but when we're aware of what it's capable of, we can actually utilize it for our benefit.
That's the thing, is not to be fearful of it. Like you said, it's going to shake it up. It's going to make you feel stuff. It's going to mess you up, and you're going to be like, "Whoa, I don't like this." And it's like, but don't feel those. Try not to feel those things. Don't pay attention to those. Pay more attention to why is it happening and whatnot. Like, now, honestly, go ahead.
Sorry, I was because I did slip off the tracks a little bit on our discussion just a moment ago, but we were talking really about synchronicity. But you, I know, have been able to notice it quite a lot. To me, it's gotten to the point now where it's just I see it as just a second nature. Oh, there it is again. I'm making note of it and so forth. But I know that when you've noticed it, it made sort of a big impact, and you had some big things to say about it.
It doesn't usually seem to come around unless there's a reason anymore. All right, so first time it happened, I didn't do what you said, because all I noticed was I'd be doing something, just handling my day, and I'd go to look at the clock, see what time it is, and it's 11:11, and then that kept happening every now and again. And it's like, well, I wasn't thinking about what I was thinking about or any of that stuff. It was just purely why is it, that's interesting. Why is that happening? I'm paying attention. And then one day, I just become part of some group that basically goes into stuff like this, and I had a place to ask people stuff. So I asked, anyone seen 11:11? What does it mean? And then I got all these answers. And now when I see it, like I saw it recently, I also got my birthday like 2 days in a row via the time, and then 89% battery the year I was born. So that was interesting. But no, now when I get it, I do what you said, Dave. I actually take note of what was I kind of thinking about, or I may even catch it and have enough time to plant an intention. Uh, but the first time, it was purely just like going for the ride. There was no time to think about what was happening. It was just something's happening, and I was just like down the rabbit hole. I took whichever pill you take, red or blue. You know which one, Dave. Until I get to take the red pill.
But just in regards, just to summarize the
What
whole
did you
idea.
see with 1111? You're the reason actually that I noticed it, Dave. You told me like a year prior that just you just mentioned it one day. So like you saw it, I imagine. What happened the first time you saw it?
Um, well, obviously nothing because I didn't, it was the first time. But then I
Is it?
started to, I kept starting to see it. And I'm the type of person who's, whether it be a blessing or a curse, who remembers a lot of different details. And, you know, even though I put it on the back burner, it's still something that, is bringing my attention to it. So I'd keep seeing that number pop up. And then I ended up reading a book about it. And then I talked to a few people about that. And it got me on the path of researching even more. And all the while, I'm again noticing this number and just making note of what's happening. And then I find out the best thing to do is to make note of it and all those other details in regards to utilizing that event to improve yourself. And it once I figured that out, it all the evidence was just there. So it was just something that I said, okay, this is clearly something that I'm going to continue to see. And, I have. And, I've mentioned it to you and you've seen it as well. And, when you open your eyes and just look at it, you'll see it there. But you've got to have an open mind. It's not like,
Yeah, it was. You can't just be like, "Oh, that's interesting." No, it'll.
but
Otherwise, you don't get taken for the
but that's the
ride.
thing, though. And again, maybe this is just me. I remember a lot of details and I remember a lot of things that continue to happen. Some people have a short memory.
Hmm.
Statistically, again, they've shown that human beings are getting more and more to the point where they've got the attention span of a goldfish, which is like 8 seconds. So, with that, coupled with a lot of information, it's hard to keep a lot of this in your head. So you might lose sight of all those different repeated situations that keep occurring. But if you do see those occurring and they happen repeatedly, it's not a coincidence. Coincidences don't exist.
Hmm. Even
Synchronicity,
synchronicity is just a word.
but synchronicity describes it
It
a
better.
lot
Yeah,
better.
sure.
Coincidences, oh, it's just some random uh, happening. It just
Like, oh,
happens.
that happens. That happens.
Synchronicity is because it happened for a particular reason, and the evidence that pops up is what you call synchronicity.
I think that, in my opinion, with the numbers, sometimes it's like you're on a schedule that you knew it was going to be 1111, and you didn't, and that's why you looked. Because those are just symbols. I think that 1111, a lot of times there's a lot of different reasons. 9/11, everyone
It's
sees
a.
9/11.
Oh,
It's
well,
if there was it was 222. You know what I mean? Why is it never 222? Why is
it
it never
is. It
3?
is. Like I got taken. Like all right, last year I got taken through the whole gambit. Like I got It started with 1111, and then it went through 222. I started seeing it happened over 2 months, and then it went to 999, and then zero. It kind of went. It was weird how it happened. A lot of 1010. When I got to 1010, I realized that was the end.
Right.
Like it was like okay, that means something's coming to an end. And here we go. And then something did happen in December, and there was the end of a lot of shit. Now a new beginning of it. Um, so it two there's angel meanings behind like 1111. Any combination of ones is self manifestation. That's why it's important to take note of what you're thinking, feeling, everything inside you when it happens, because there's like kind of a snapshot going on, and you can manifest your destiny through those numbers. Like it's a chance and an opportunity, I believe, to do so. Like 222, I think that means basically you're on your way. Like you're, keep going. You're once you figured out the 111 thing, keep going. 333 means like ascended masters. You have the power of like Buddha, Jesus, all these other masters around you. Like 444 means you have the guidance of the angels around you. I don't remember every last one of these all the way through 10, but 888 usually has to do with money. 777 means you're really on a roll. Keep that up. Keep it up. Whatever you're doing, 777, keep it up. 666 means I want to look that one up because that does not mean what people think. And you may even have there's different meanings. I know you may have a different one, Dave. What have you heard about that while I'm looking it up? The whole
Oh,
666 thing?
Well, numerology, there's different schools of numerology. So what Jesse is saying is of a particular school, but there are
Yeah,
different schools.
like
So
exactly.
the meaning that they attribute to particular combinations of numbers will be different, and a lot of times
Oh,
from each different school. So that
hmm
has to be considered in
thank you
regards
for
to
pointing
this.
that out, actually, Dave. These are angel numbers, guys. You can yeah, these that's what this goes by. This isn't I'm not even looking up numerology necessarily. This is like I don't know, this basically goes with angel number. Like 666, that's what it means. It means something's a little out of balance, like take a step back and reevaluate things like are your material desires over your spiritual um are things really are you making things a little too difficult, like is something a little out of balance, is something a little over when it should, is something a little under. It's just saying take note, like take a look at at things. That's all 666 means in angel numbers, kind of meaning. And I guess this is a form of numerology, right, Dave? I mean, there's different forms of it, like you said,
Oh,
right?
there's many, many
Yeah,
different forms. It's
that's the beautiful
very,
thing about them,
very
right?
ancient, and a lot of different societies have used it in different ways in the past.
guys, we have a caller on the line. 513, if you're still alive.
Yeah,
Woo!
what's up,
Let's go.
man? It's CL, man.
Hey, man, what's
I
going on?
just I didn't want to interrupt it, man. It was going so well.
I know, they were
I was
doing well.
really into it. But no, I had a quick question. Actually, it's kind of like a question slash story. But I was sitting there thinking with the whole thing with numbers and stuff like that. I was really fascinated with all that. Probably like I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years ago, I met which became one of my best friends. We actually met through a number, which was 13. It was his favorite number, and it was my batting number when I was in baseball and stuff like that. And it was really cool because we met because we had nothing else in common besides that, but we became really good friends. And then we met someone else through the same way, 13. What do you even think about 13 row? And it was just he was there, and it was like a crazy like thing that made me think. It kind of gives me goosebumps even talking about it. But once that happened, and I realized it's kind of like the way I look at it. Like it sounds, this will sound really weird, but the way I look at it, it's going to be like kind of like how women's cycles sync up. You know what I mean? With these three guys or these two guys, I felt like we synced up in a way that like I got like I don't know. I just understood everything that they understood. When I had a feeling, they had a feeling, and as soon as he moved away, I was just I still haven't been myself. But every time I do see him, it's like I get energy back or something. It's weird to explain, but I was trying to get like maybe your input on it, Dave and Jesse and Joe.
Well, let me just quickly say that it, depending, I guess, on your clock, but it seems to be that you're just about to be 13 minutes towards midnight, and tomorrow being is the 13th Friday of May. So all the
Holy
talk
shit, I
about
didn't even think
13,
about that.
all the talk about 13 is synchronicity. Look at
Oh,
all
dude,
that
13.
happening
Yeah.
right now
Yeah,
because you
I
brought it
for
up.
real have the craziest goosebumps, dude. I didn't even know what today's date was.
So
pretty
Let's
much
there
go.
you go. You got to think about what this means and maybe how you might be able to utilize it to improve yourself to make your life better. So there's a
And I
message.
totally agree.
Either way, there's a message being told here. We don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. You'll have to look into it. But there's something that's being told here that's repeated with that number, and it's just up to you to basically figure it out.
And that's one thing kind of terrifies me sometimes because I get on the internet, and I try to look up what all this stuff means. And like I think, like you all said, it's just everything means something different. So I don't know if it's a good thing, if it's a bad thing. But I always feel like when I do run into this friend that I don't see all the time, but when I do run into him, it's like, you know, I already know that his mom came out of the hospital and she's fine. You know, he already knows that I'm doing well. That my kid, my 5-year-old, got this crazy toy, or that he's into Star Wars now. And I'm like, well, how would you even know that? I don't post that kind of stuff. And he's like, I just know, man. He's like, we have something, and I just know, and it kind of has something to do with all this. And I'm just fascinated. That's why I was so excited when shit came on tonight, man. You know what I mean?
That's crazy. And that's and get ready for tomorrow. Should be a weird day. Dressy.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Well, but what's retrograde and Friday the 13th and all that stuff going to mean for us on
yummy.
Friday?
I don't know.
Or nothing.
Well, no, I mean that might actually be a reason why it might be goofy. But every day's been like a Friday the 13th.
It really has. Yeah, it's not even a joke. Like it really
no, it's
has.
not. It's been heavy stuff.
It has been really weird, man.
Why don't you give a little brief explanation to the audience as to the whole retrograde thing?
Yeah, give me like 1 second, and then I'm gonna get into that.
Hey, the guy that Zimmerman who killed Trayvon Martin, he's auctioning off the gun today too. So, there's another weird thing.
Are you kidding me? That's some morbid stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty, into morbid stuff.
That's so weird. That just happened to pop up on my news feed here, but yeah, tell us about this this retrograde.
Every year, all the planets go into retrograde, except two that normally don't too often is Venus and Mars, which makes this kind of a special time because 5 planets are going into retrograde all at once this year, which hasn't happened in a decade. What retrograde is usually we see Mercury the most. It happens 4 times a year, and what it is it's to our eye it looks like the planet is going backwards around the sun, and it's just an illusion. It's not really doing that, but our minds seeing that, thinking that, and then everything that's been put behind the belief behind it. Retrograde has become a real thing. The planets, it's obvious the planets do influence us. I mean, come on, it pulls the tides. It affects how well your crops do, depending when whether it's a full moon or a new moon and all that stuff. And when you plant stuff, so it affects us. So anyway, when it goes backwards like this, it makes us more sensitive. Let's see. It's kind of going into retrograde. Yeah, okay. It appears to move backwards. Yeah, negative. Okay, so if we think it's going to be negative, then you'll have negative effects. You want to look at this as an opportunity to change things. It's a time to reassess, reevaluate your life. That's what a retrograde period's for. Usually we get Mercury. Now, Mercury is the planet that involves communication. How you not just talking like we are now, but how when you touch things, when someone does something, when you see things, how you perceive the world is how you communicate with the world. That is how Mercury affects us. And so when that's in retrograde, which it is now until the 22nd, goofy stuff happens, like more traffic, things like not starting on time for shows. Like, we've had trouble with computers. We've had trouble with a lot of things. Receipts not working at stores when we go shopping. All kinds of little things.
My work has been crazy filled with this stuff.
I can imagine with all the phone, you will see a lot of things, or say piddly little arguments over nothing, right? That's communication. Computers are great, when they always go down during this time because communication. That's all internet is. That's all anything is just communication. It's funny, nobody thinks of that, but it's true. When you turn on a television, it's communicating. Everything's communicating.
I want to quickly add, I've actually messed up a computer, actually 2 computers. I guess with my biorhythm, I was upset with the way the computer was behaving. And I guess, an outburst of energy for me in the form of I guess, anger. Basically, forced the computer into a reboot and sort of messed it up. This was a long time ago when they were quite sensitive and such. But it was amazing that I was able to notice that actually occurred.
No, it's very possible. Like I started noticing, meeting Joe and meeting you guys. I started thinking like, not only is it amazing how we can like, you can feel people over the internet. You can. It's like they're. It's like we've never really met in person, any of us, but it doesn't really matter, does it? And that apparently it does. No, just kidding. Anyway,
It's amazing how it doesn't, but
I started
it's
thinking that maybe in some cases it might even make it stronger. Who knows? Because it's actually carrying over a
oh
current.
yeah, it would. I think it would. I think it's pretty strong, but there's still a disconnect with everybody because
There
we
is
don't.
in person. There's always a stronger feel. So,
Yeah.
but it's just okay. So that's Mercury. Now that's gonna, like I said, it's gonna communication, in a lot of senses. So when you go places, plan ahead. Don't think anything's just gonna run smoothly. Always plan. Leave 5 minutes early if you normally don't. Everything. Just make sure, double check with people for plans. When you plan stuff, don't expect it to be 100% perfect or even happen. Like just kind of go with the flow, and if things don't go as planned, don't get mad because it's just retrograde. Okay, that's Mercury. Now we just ended Jupiter retrograde. That just went direct May 9th. And before a retrograde period, that's why I said I get it early. That's because before the retrograde, you get a shadow period, when it comes into it's a shadow period before a pre-retrograde, and then there's post-retrograde. In the pre-retro, I need to I'm going to be talking about this in future shows because we've got more later in the year going on. We got Neptune in June going, and I'll talk about that then. But I need to do a little more research on what the shadow periods really mean, because like right now we're in the Jupiter shadow period. It's interesting. I do okay. So what Jupiter? That was happening from what was it? January to now, basically about 4 months or so. And what Jupiter has to do with is Mercury was communication, so Jupiter is like fortune, basically. Um, like good things happening, right? Well, sometimes like you have to go through hard times to get to the gold, right? To get to the good stuff.
Hmm.
So, um, okay, so hang on one second, guys. Self-analysis required to own and overcome. So basically, if you want to stay positive during that time, there's been I don't know if anyone's noticed any crazy stuff since January to now, like a lot of
Oh,
life changes, shifting back and forth, like a pinball machine getting knocked around.
that's what's been happening in my life for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, what about the last 2 or 3 months? Actually, it's been going pretty good for you, huh?
It's been going really
Actually,
good up until about
okay,
2 weeks
that's
ago.
what's probably going to. I'm not saying it's going to go bad, but
But it's gone.
what's
It has gone bad.
if it's either been going rough for people or it's been going good, right? That's your
No,
fortune. That's
it's been going rough for me for the last 2 3 months. Yeah.
okay. So it's been going depending on your situation out there. It's either going to be going a little rough, a little good, right? Or right now, it's taking the shift. We're going direct now. We were in a retrograde, so if you were having things go good, get ready to hold on to what was good and kind of brace. Just hold on for a little while and have good self control. Have yeah, really have self control. That's what this is a big retrograde. I'm going to talk about Saturn. All most of these planets, what they have in common this year, self control and kind of like a tough love situation. And for if things have been going rough for you, things are going to start going better. But you still have to stay grounded. You still need to anything that you haven't been doing that you need to be, your health, your whatever, anything that you've been doing in excess or that you just been putting off, stop putting it off, because it's now or never. And then if you've already been going at it, well then, like if you haven't been putting it off, you've already been working at it. Keep working at it because it's almost the payoff. So it's kind of like it's different for different people, but it's about fortune. It's about everyone's on the same journey going like we're all getting better. If you already had things going good, well, then you have to have things go a little rough. That's the key to that's karma. It's balance. And if you've had things, I forget which one I just said. If it's been going good, it's going to go a little rough. If it's going rough, it's going to go a little better. So that's what Jupiter's going to be bringing. There's probably more aspects of this I'm not taking into effect. Oh, spirituality. Like I told you guys. I said this is Jupiter retrograde is probably why we're doing this show right now, because it's a time for everyone to start questioning spirituality and why we're all here, and does it all have to be this way? And you're going to notice a lot of people, quote unquote, waking up. Like we've talked about fluoride stuff, we talk about all kinds of stuff. This is about spirituality, religion. However you do what you do, whether you're a religious person, spiritual person, or neither, really, you're going to be interested now. It's just part of the planetary influence, and it's what's supposed to happen in this point in life. So that's another thing about Jupiter. It's bringing about people want to learn, and also people want to self-discovery. What makes you happy? I don't know. Yeah, what makes your soul happy? Whether you believe in a soul or not, you're going to be looking for the happiness of your soul. Doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. Doesn't. That's the funny thing. Everyone wants to focus on what they believe in, and it's like doesn't really matter. So you might as well take in the information. It's like Dave said, be open-minded because it couldn't hurt. I mean, it's really. So now let's go to Mars is an easy one. Let's do Mars. Okay, Mars retrograde is from April 17th to June 29th. Now, right now you may notice like a push and pull going on. Like Mars is the planet of action, and Dave Rose, he's an Aries. His sign is ruled by Mars. Man of action and assertive. Pain in the ass. But no, anyway, Mars.
I would say
You'll
Dave
notice
is
The
very direct.
compassion of a rock.
Well, for real, like so right now with the Mars and retrograde thing, you're going to notice a lot of things are in planning stage, and you may be really wanting to go for stuff, whatever it may be, new relationships, work endeavor, just anything you can think of that you really have been just itching to go for, and you're not for some reason, and it's even causing you like, what's going on? That's the Mars thing. Don't expect to be fully ready to take action on anything heavy in your life, especially regarding like relationships, sexual energy, intense energy, something where heavy action is needed, anything that may be. You're going to take full action come. So June 29th is when the retrograde ends, and then the shadow period is all the way from June 30th to August 22nd. So
Yeah.
I'll have to look into the shadow thing. I imagine what the periods, the shadow periods, are probably just like like when it's coming in, it's probably a priming, like getting you ready for the big show, and then you're kind of we're not quite direct going into the post shadow period. It's kind of debriefing you, I guess you could say. Like I'll have to look into this more, but that's the way I see it. So get ready for action to start taking place in the summer. Lots of action on all the things that you've been thinking about doing with your lives. Let's see, what do we have next? Jupiter, Pluto. Okay, Pluto's important. Pluto is the planet of death. Any Scorpios out there, that's your planet. Death is very important. What happens? A lot of people go through midlife crises. You don't even have to wait till you're in those ages. You may notice that a lot of times you have to. The phoenix rises from the ashes, right? You have to burn yourself once in a while. You have to destroy everything about you. You have to love the things you hate about yourself. Addictions, jealousy, greed, envy, everything that makes you that you wish wasn't there, but it is, and you got to learn to love it, right? You accept it, you forgive yourself for it, and then you're aware of it. Now that's Pluto. We're going to be in Pluto retrograde for this happens every year for about 6 months. I think the same time every year, and I didn't know that until recently. This is going to happen till about September. It just started. Okay, April 18th to September 26th. In Capricorn. Okay. Okay. So yeah, there's gonna be get ready to feel like really shitty for really crappy for a while. As far as with yourself, you're gonna start facing your demons. For the guy in the chat, I know you're gonna love that word. Uh, yeah, you're gonna start facing the dark side of yourself. There's a light and a dark, right? Dark side of the moon, light side of the moon. Good and bad, whatever you want to call it, negative, positive. Get ready to face the darker side. Anything that you've really just, I don't know, the parts of you really really don't like are going to come up, and you're not only going to face them, you're going to move past them, and that's what this retrograde's for from Pluto. A very psychic planet. It's my sub-ruler planet. It's like it's Scorpios, Pisces, very psychic signs, psychic planets. Neptune, Pluto. You as well, Joe. Yours Cancer. That's ruled by the moon. One of the most intuitive planet. Things. I don't know if you can call it a planet, but it's whatever. It's look at the power it has. Pulls the tides.
Yeah. Right.
Very feminine. It's amazing. It connects us with Mother Earth, and with, if you believe in a God out there, that's what it connects you with. The moon. So, last one, very important, most important. Saturn. Saturn is Father Time. Saturn is karma, literally karma. Whenever karma needs to happen, that's who doles it out, Saturn. This retrograde is, I guess a good theme to call it would be tough love, or love hurts, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
Anything you've done in your life that's bad, it's going to come back to get you around this time. Anything you've done good, it's going to come back. So it's funny, even if you're like, let's say you've had a rough life, you've actually been been the best person, right? And now you're trying to change it. That's all good, but you're going to actually have a really tough time, because that's like right now, of course you want to change it because it's karma, the karmic shift is happening, but you're going to have to eat everything you've done and said now. Same goes for anyone who's eaten shit, or had to deal with pain and strife all their lives. Say, it doesn't mean like tough times aren't going to still happen, but they're going to get the other shift. It's kind of like I said earlier with Jupiter, with the fortune thing, except this is even bigger. This is beyond, like, this is just everything. This has to do with financials, love, relationships, with yourself, with others, with everything, work, just everything.
Right.
And now is going to be a time when you're going to see, require this item in order to pay that. Behaviors. It's going to be a slow build, all of this. Like, everything's going to be very slow. It's going to be frustrating. God, I don't know how to put this one. How do I put this? Scary, darker, disappointment, setbacks, psychological. I'm sorry, hang on. I'm just reading a few things.
Some will face some very trying decisions, and
a lot of.
You're gonna have to do what's best for you.
Saturn retrograde in transit. Okay. Whatever area of responsibility you've been developing, you're going to need a lot more time with it. Anything that okay, so like if you've been trying to better any habits in your life, anything, eating better, quitting smoking, just absolutely anything that's better. Going to bed earlier, waking up earlier, you name it. Keep working at it. It's going to be incredibly a slow build. Don't let up on any of those good things, because I don't know, that it's like the most potent time right now. And it's gonna feel like you're doing great and all that, but then if you slip off on any of these good positive things you're trying to do, you're gonna feel it, and you're gonna feel it a lot and over time, because this is a key point right now. I don't know if I've done a good job of explaining what all this means, but all I can really say in summing all this up is be very aware of yourselves, and please, like, don't take anything lightly in your lives right now. Make sure that you check every decision you make. Don't be worried, but make sure everything you're doing is right for you. Don't agree to things that insult your soul, that insult you deep inside. Even if it means going against your family, even if I want to explain that. now is going to be a time of self-exploration and putting yourself first. You 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 have to work on your. Everyone has to work on themselves. Um, because that's kind of why the planet's in the disarray it is. Nobody's people are worried about themselves in the wrong way. Um, but so many people have gone away from like people work 9 to 5, they're killing themselves, right, to support who, their family. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not love. Seems like it is, but no, you're killing yourself. That's not loving yourself, and it doesn't matter what you're doing for your family if you're killing yourself. So take a lot of time for yourself and do a lot of things for yourself. Worry about yourself and worry about your family. Worry about all those things, but it's just I don't know. Like start putting yourself ahead. If something is fucking sorry, people are leaving their jobs in this time period right now. Like leaving jobs and not caring where their next what happens the next day because their jobs are like they're unhappy with them. They don't like the part of the system they're in, whatever that may be. Do whatever you need to do to be happy. Like just be aware of your life and um yeah, I don't know, don't think you don't have control of it because you do, and it doesn't have to be the way that it is. So think about everything we've talked about tonight with the power of the mind and stuff. um that's what this whole retrograde thing is about too, is it's about figuring out where you want to be and one way or another realizing that you can get there. So
Oh
I think
man,
that's the best thing I can say.
we just nailed it. I could have listened to that for all day. Dave, what do you think about that, man?
I would have to agree for the most part with Jesse. He makes some great points. I'm also just chatting here in the chat. There's a lot of interesting questions that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, I probably like. Anyone out there can go listen to any other shows. Like, there's lots of them that will explain everything I just said in better detail. Lots of things you can read, but
I
hopefully I
think you
put
did.
enough feeling out there.
I
I
wanted
think you
to,
did a good job in explaining a lot of it, and in some very concise and easy terms.
Yeah, I mean, the details are one thing. Really, this is just a potent time. So just pay attention and
One thing I wanted
take
to add,
it.
though, is that some people were saying, there's a lot of information, and
Mm,
you know, you can't always go off what the books say. Obviously, books are
absolutely.
important. Uh, Information does change from time to time. Sometimes people try to rewrite it because it doesn't fit the current narrative. So that's also something to consider. But also, don't doubt your feelings. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what, I'm not gonna look at any information and get distracted as to what a potential bias might be. I'm just gonna see, is this good? Is this bad? If I'm concerned, I want to only think positive. Sort of relates to some of the previous episodes we had discussing ghosts and such. But again, the whole purpose that you're, doing what you want to do is to be a positive individual. So I would think that's something to consider.
I do.
I agree.
I think you're agreeing, and it's very interesting to see where this stuff is going to take us at this point. And Jesse, I mean, I know we got to really wrap it up here. We've talked a little bit about psychic abilities. It's been really good. I've loved what I've heard from you guys. And one other thing that I want to do, I want to tell you something. You're going to think this is really weird, but as we're doing this show right now, I'm sitting here, and I know Dave, I mentioned it to him earlier, and he said he's not interested. But I bought a Google VR virtual reality headset. Not one of those $800 ones that's a video game system, but it's just the one you put your phone in. But I didn't realize when you put your phone into it and you go into the application, you can turn your head all around, and there's a world. And you just look around and there's a world. And I feel like I'm in this amazing world right now. And I know this sounds crazy, but I've been doing this while you were talking, Jesse, and I went into one of the applications that's space, and I was going to each planet while you continued to speak about retrograding the planets, and it was immersive. It was unbelievably immersive, and I know the dangers of things like this virtual reality where you disconnect yourself from reality when There's so much realism to be felt instead of putting yourself in this place. But it was, man, I will tell you, for someone like me who's got the, very intense ADD and stuff like that, it really allowed me to focus and connect on a different level with what you were speaking about. I recommend it to anybody to try this Google VR headset.
Now, I want to say that instantly attracted me, that you were able to get an immersive feeling when it came to the planets, because that, again, is my soft spot, is space and
Dave,
the great beyond. So
there's a
being
great
able to physically feel like you're moving between the planets, and again, the distance is so big. People don't realize, and you got to look at simulators, but people don't realize the distance between, say, Earth and the Moon, or even Earth and Mars. It's insane.
Oh yeah,
when they talk about how long it would take, and they talk about how fast they'd be going, and they say how many years, it's like, what the heck? To some of these places. I mean, even because Mars is relatively not that far, right? Compared to
that's the thing, though. It's got an elliptical orbit that changes, so the distance can be, I believe, 1.8 months, or it could be 1.8 years, or 2.4 years.
Yeah.
So it depends on how close it is to the Earth, because the Earth is on the inside, closer to the sun, and it rotates quicker around the sun.
It's interesting to me that the planets that are the most well, except the moon, but the ones that are like the most like Pluto and Neptune. Neptune would be the one that I work with, basically. It's Pisces. Very influential, yet so far away. I get the other ones are so influential. They're very, very close. Mercury,
the ancient
Venus.
civilizations were quite aware of them, and also used
It's just
them in
interesting.
their
And Neptune, I think, was
divinations.
the first. Wasn't it the only planet to be gauged by what was it? It was like a mathematical equation, or how did they find Neptune again? Wasn't I feel now I'm gonna look like an idiot, but I thought it was like the only planet to be found by mathematical equation or a guesstimation or something.
I know
Basically,
that was, I
intuition
know
or
that
something.
initially Pluto was found that way,
Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. Maybe
and
that's
then
what I'm thinking.
eventually, when Voyager passed by, they made sure that it was there.
Okay, so it's interesting. It's just all interesting to me very much. How far they are, and then how much influence they have. All of it. So,
Well,
I'll
guys,
have to. We'll have to get into more of it later in the year because there's other stuff retrograde wise happening, but that's pretty much it.
there's a big amount of it from Jesse. That was really cool, man. That was even better than I thought it would be, and there's definitely more. It's once again, it's a topic we could probably just continue to go on and
I
on.
want to say one thing because I will be going into Neptune retrograde, which I think starts in June or July.
Yeah.
That's gonna I don't know anything about Neptune retrograde except I've read that it's a time when the veil's the most thinnest, where obviously I walk around daily more connected with the heavens than I am connected with Earth. That's just the way it is. It's very uncomfortable and it sucks. But the cool thing about that is dreams can happen that way. So when Neptune goes into retrograde, all this hard work we're all putting in, and I said keep it up earlier, it's because when Neptune goes into retrograde, it's going to be a time to actually achieve dreams and not worry about boundaries so much. So that's going to be something to look forward to, I think.
Well, definitely. That's what I was going to mention to you a minute ago. Was where do you see us going? So that really answers that question. I wanted to see because we talked
always to a better place than we are now. Always.
Yeah.
Like Dave said earlier, we get shaken up, but it's for the betterment.
It is for the betterment, and I just like to close it on what you said was where are we going, and always better, always somewhere better.
That's the thing. If you sit there and be negative about stuff, which I'm pretty much the king of that, so I'm not judging. If you do that, you're only hindering the process. You're only making it take longer. You're missing opportunity, really. And and it's not a bad thing. Sometimes I had to do that for 25 years before I learned how to live, and I'm still learning. So it's okay to do that. But the thing is, the more you kind of just remember what I just said about it's always for our betterment. If you can kind of tap into that and not just believe it because I don't know, you want to or somebody said it, but if you can actually figure out what that means and why, that'll save you a lot of pain throughout. Because really, no matter what's happening, I don't care if people die in your family. It's one way or another. In the long run, you won't notice it right away, but years later, you realize everything's for your betterment. So don't let things get you down too hard.
Well, Jesse, thank you very much. Devious Dave Rose, thank you as well. And
Always
thanks.
a pleasure.
Thank you, man. You guys really put me. I know that
This was a solid show, man. It's good.
you guys put me. I can't even explain to you what I've been going through watching these planets and listening to you guys talk tonight. That's why you probably didn't hear me speak a whole lot, because I was just entrenched in this. Man, what I just did with you guys speaking, I think that I would, if you told me it was $50 to do that again, I would give you $50 because it was a great experience. And I absolutely loved
that's
it.
cool.
I would say if you guys have the VR headset or you can get that Google one, throw that on.
How much is that?
Dude, it's $100, but you throw that on, listen to it. I don't know, dude. Like, I gotta get you one or something. Like, this is.
Well, no, I never heard of it till tonight. That's really cool.
I had a blast with it. You guys are gonna love it. All right, guys. It sounds like they're selling on our show, but it's really just me being that impressed with it. I thought it was gonna be junk, but you guys, we killed it. We had a great time. I love this explanation of retrograde. It's absolutely been happening in psychic abilities. Like, we talked a little bit about that. I think we can go more into a whole show on psychic abilities next time, even, and we will. And thanks for joining us. Final Frontier News. Make sure to subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. Every Tuesday, we're supposed to be live at around 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, but we missed last week again because I had issues with the YouTube channels and stuff like that. Bob Mitchell is going to reschedule with us to be on again. I actually hadn't heard from him anyway, so we were wondering what was going to go on. But that'll give me more time to finish reading his book. So that's great with him and Jason Quit. So they still will be coming up. Guys, have a great night.